Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Today I am going to be giving you guys the MBR TBR for the month of May. Alright, so May is my birthday month, and I have been going about 150 miles an hour on this channel since like July last year when I came back. I know I've kind of mentioned this in the last few videos that I've done when I'm talking to you guys about updates, that I needed a little bit of a mood reading break. I definitely was feeling some overcommitment going on at the beginning of this year, and it's all been amazing and super fun, and I've loved it. I want to take May and really focus on getting a few books out of the way that I have pushed back. I have a very small stack for TBR this month, and those are books that absolutely will get read in the month of May. The first one that I'm very excited about that has been getting pushed back for the last, I think I was supposed to originally do this buddy read in February. Shout out to Read by Kyle for being incredibly patient. But that book is Lancelot by Giles Christian. I know that this has been on my TBR videos before, and this time I mean it. I mean it, guys. Like, I'm gonna read this book. So in May, I will be doing a buddy read of Lancelot with Read by Kyle. I will link, again, his channel down in the description box below. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's definitely gonna be a switch up from the other things I'm planning on reading this month. It is gonna be probably the only historical fiction that I read unless something inspires me. I have been reading a ton of historical fiction this year, which I have been loving, but I am definitely in the mood for some straight up fantasy for a while. Lancelot is going to be my historical fiction for the month. I may pull in another one, and we'll talk about that later. But honestly, like I said before, a lot of this is going to be very nebulous as far as what I'm actually planning on reading or what I actually will have read at the end of the month. The other one that I think will end up getting read in May is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. Now, this was a very short Jane Austen novel. I have not actually finished a Jane Austen novel ever, so I'm very excited to finally be able to say that I have. I grew up on all of the films and all of the TV series, and I absolutely loved the stories, but I haven't actually been able to finish one of her books. So I am buddy reading this with She Was Only Evie, Kay's Hidden Shelf, and Patricia Meredith. I will link all of them down below as well. And we kind of started this classics book club a few months ago, and it's been really fun. We've read Wuthering Heights, and we read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and had a nice talk about it. So it's been kind of fun to get little classics thrown in here and there so that I can keep working through that genre. So as you can see, I have actually started reading this one a little bit in the last couple of months. Ooh. I don't know why. Why do I have two bookmarks in this book? I don't know. And I think it's going to be a fun read. I'm really looking forward to it. It's very witty. It's already I can tell that this is a little bit of a satire because Jane Austen is kind of poking fun at the society that she's living in or aware of, and it's pretty funny so far, so I'm looking forward to finishing this. Next up on the TBR is a book that I will be e-reading, and that is Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. This is an ARC copy that I requested from NetGalley. I came out of my NetGalley 2-year hiatus to request this because I have been told by some people that if I loved Red Rising, I'm really gonna love this book, and say no more. I also happen to know that Alex is a pretty talented martial artist, and so that makes me even more excited to read this book because it is always fun to read combat written by somebody who really knows their stuff. This one I think is releasing in July, so I am giving myself a couple of extra months, and I'm going to get through this arc this month, and I am very, very excited to read this. Those are the only books that I am planning on reading for sure this month. Now let's get into the MBR. Now, I've done a couple of things to kind of see what I was feeling this month. One of the things that I noticed right away was that I am definitely feeling some Asian-inspired fantasy lately. I went onto my shelves and I pulled off some of the books that are Asian inspired, either just fiction or fantasy, and kind of made myself a little stack, so I will hold this up for you guys. I will probably reach for one or two of these this month. I'm not entirely sure which ones yet. I am going to read them all at some point, but I've just really been feeling the Asian inspired fantasy lately. J.F. Lee's Sword of Sorrow, Blade of Joy is one that I'm very excited about. I'm definitely here for some samurai fantasy. I'm 100% here for that right now, so this is definitely on that list. Another one that I have is 12 Blades in Contempt by Jordan Darrett, which is another book that I've been really excited about. This one has more of a kind of assassin Asian fantasy vibe, I believe, which again, still very excited about. And as you can see, both of these are fairly short. So I have been trying to kind of give myself some shorter options, room for more reads this month. If I want to mood read quite a few different books that have been sitting on my shelf for a while, I definitely want to get through a couple of these shorter ones. Another one in this stack, as you probably saw, is The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Long. It is kind of a travesty that I haven't actually read this book yet. I'm not sure either. I don't know what to tell you guys. I have been told by so many people that I will absolutely love this book, and I have started to notice that I get really excited about the books that people think I'm gonna love, but then the hype scares me a little bit, and so I have to give myself a little bit of space between people like just being so excited for me to read this book. I need to give myself a little space and then come back to it so that I can have kind of a clear headspace and just take my time and really have my own experience with it. I am going to be getting the super, super beautiful special edition of this book at some point later this year, and I would like to have read it prior to getting the special edition copy. This one might be on my list for anybody who's read it. I'm not sure how fast this reads. It is a tiny bit of a chunk, which doesn't scare me. I just want to make sure that I'm in the right headspace to pick up a book this big this month. Then this one is a YA that somebody that I know, Kat the Fairy Librarian, who I will link down below, and I know other people that have read this, but she read it this last month for the April Readathon that I'm a part of. It just kind of rekindled my excitement to get into it. This is a YA fantasy, Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, and from what I understand, it is a princess whose brothers get turned into cranes, and there's a fight against a curse kind of vibe to it, and I'm excited about that, and I think I'm definitely going to be in the mood at some point this month for something that's a little bit lighter, something that is a little bit of a step away from the really dense adult fantasy that I've been reading, and honestly, this cover is just absolutely stunning. So I'm very excited to get to this one as well. And then the last one on my Asian-inspired fiction list is Beasts of a Little Land by Joo-hee Kim. This one I don't know as much about. I know that there's a peasant worker who saves a nobleman in the beginning and from a tiger, and that's about all I know about it. This is another one that I'd heard really good things about, and it's been sitting on my TBR for quite a while, and I'm excited to get into it. So that little pile is, if Tori is feeling the Asian-inspired fantasy this month, those are some of the options that I'll probably draw from and just see what tickles my fancy at any point during the month. And I will say right now, I will not be reading all of those. So it's probably going to be one or two this month, and then I'll just kind of continue to sprinkle them into my TBR MBR. But there are two more books that I really want to get to this month, one of which is a review copy that I have been really excited about since I got it, and that is Season of Kings by A.J. Retger. This one I really don't know much about, and I do like to go into review copies pretty blind, other than knowing a general vibe or feel or synopsis of them so that I know if it's going to be a good fit for me when I accept the review copy. But this one just, I think, is going to be a really good grimdark fantasy fight for a kingdom vibe, and it's not that long. So this is one that is probably next up on my review copies list. Very excited to read this one. That one I probably will get to this month for sure. And then the other one is, this is my birthday month, and I think that there's really no better time for me to get back into my favorite series, one of my favorite series of all time, which is Stephen Erickson's Malazan Book of the Fallen. I want to pick up Gardens of the Moon this month. I said that I wanted to start in January, and I definitely kind of pulled back a little bit because of the massive read-along that's going on for Malazan right now, which is awesome. I'm loving all of the Malazan content. I just needed a little bit of space between me and the read-along so that I could have kind of my own cocooned experience with it, because I have not read these books in 10 years, and they mean so much to me that I am nervous, excited, thrilled, all of the things to get back into the series. I mean, Gardens isn't actually that long. The trade paperback isn't even 500 pages. I've had this conversation with so many people this last month, and that is how intimidated people are by Malazan. Now, I totally agree that if you go into it trying to figure out absolutely every little thing that's going on, you will get overwhelmed. That being said, I do think that people give it way too much of a scary hype. Like the series is gonna break your mind. It's not that bad, you guys. It's really not. If I can read it, you can read it. I promise. The first time I read this book, I really didn't know what was going on, but the characters were so interesting and the world was so mind-blowing and different that I kept reading. I'm going into it this second time, obviously knowing more because I got through three other books in the series, but I'm still just going into it just to read it. I'm not gonna try and, put all the pieces together. I'm just gonna read it and let it sink in and let myself immerse into the story again. We'll see if I get to it, but I'm pretty sure I will. This is kind of the TBR, the ones that I want to get to for sure. And then I threw in the Asian-inspired fantasy pile as a if I feel like them, but to be perfectly honest, I may also just grab something off my shelf because that's the kind of mood that I'm in right now. And I have to be really careful because as soon as I'm like, I'm going to read these this month, then it doesn't feel like mood reading as much. So maybe what I'll do this month is I'll give you guys some updates during the different weeks of May so that if I end up choosing some different things to read, you guys can follow along with me and we will discover the books that are going to be on the actual TBR together as we go through the month of May. Another thing that I did that I wanted to show you guys that I'm kind of excited about is I made myself TBR jars. I had seen other people do this on YouTube and thought it was a cool idea. And I may add another one at some point for non-fantasy, but for now I have all of my self-pub titles in this jar and all of my trad pub titles in this jar for fantasy, and I'm going to maybe in the next few months draw one of each every month. Let me know if that's something that you guys do. I'd be really curious. How do you guys pick your TBRs for the month? Do you do anything specific? Do you mood read exclusively? Do you draw something? Do you plan it all out months in advance? Because I know I have friends that do that. So what do you guys do for your TBRs during the month? How do you decide what you're gonna read? So that's basically it. That's my May update. I'm really looking forward to these books, but I definitely want to give myself a lot of grace and space this month because my brain is very much burned out, not just on reading, but on content creation, and I want to make sure that everything that I'm reading and doing is really pouring back into me and re-energizing me this next month or two. If you've read any of the books on my MBR TBR for the month, let me know what you thought of them down in the comments. What are you guys excited to read in the month of May? I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope that you are reading 5-star reads, and I will see you in the next video.